In the background is the San Gabriel mountain range. I've done a lot of videos up there, and if you subscribe to me, you've probably seen them. I've got about 1,000 videos now on YouTube, maybe a little more. And a lot of them were taking place right back here, San Gabriel mountain range. You really can't see it now because of the smoke from the fires up north by Yosemite. But this being west, and of course this being east, you would have Azusa Mountain, where a lot of my videos are, Azusa Canyon, where a lot of my videos are shot. There's a lot of history up there. That was one of the passes from the desert side to this side. That was one of the main passes coming through the mountains for the Native Americans. Down here you got Mount Baldy, you got the 15 freeway running this way, and you have San Bernardino Mountains on that side. Well, in between that mountain range, the San Gabriel mountain range, and the ocean lies this range. This range, if you were to look at this and see this as the San Gabriel mountain range, and this is the ocean, in between there's a mountain range that comes down about 3/4 of the way to the mountains and runs parallel, and it comes down where we are right now, goes over into Chino Hills. From Chino Hills it goes up, and then it starts heading down again towards San Diego by Camp Pendleton and out into the desert. Well, the Native Americans in this area were the Tongva, what they call the Tongva. And they were migratory. They didn't just hang out in teepees like you see on Gunsmoke and Bonanza and Tribes, and they didn't just hang out. They traveled with the seasons. And up there, Azusa Canyon was one of the, which was Valley of the Skunks. Azusa translates in the Tongva, I believe it was the Tongva tongue, into roughly Valley of the Skunks, because there were a lot of skunks in that area. Well, that was one of the tribes coming down through East Fork, through Graveyard Canyon, and through various places along the mountain. But it all ended out of Azusa, the mouth of Azusa, because the San Gabriel Mountain River, the San Gabriel River, was a river that flowed all the way to the ocean. There were actually fish that did migratory up and back. Not salmon, but a landlocked, there's a steelhead, and there's some landlocked steelhead back there. People say there's not, but if you read about it and you search into it, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll catch some of the native trout way, way back. And those of you who fish and follow me know where I catch them. But they've got like a squared off dorsal fin. And I took some pictures of them, and the guy says those are landlocked steelhead. As crazy as it sounds, they are descendants of a landlocked steelhead. But in between there and here, the Native Americans used to travel. And this, what I'm going to show you, is one of the trails they went through. One of the only trails, natural trails through the mountains right here. And another one was over at another place known today as Hacienda. This one down here is Fullerton Road, the old Fullerton Road. When I turn the camera around, I'm going to show you and tell you some of the stuff I found. You're going to find it totally amazing. But again, all of this is going to be in the details. So there's so much more information than what I'm just going to tell you. It'll blow you away. So before any of the roads or modern day trails for the Native Americans to get from the other side to this side of the mountain, two of the main ways they would have came through would have been through the East Fork that comes down through Azusa. It's a natural gateway through the mountain. Another one would have been from Baden-Powell, which is right out there, the bottom, Vincent Gap, 4.5 miles to the top, Baden-Powell, over and out Chantry Flats, 53 miles. It's a trail through the mountain on their migration from desert to ocean. I'm going to take you on the other side of this mountain and show you a bunch of places that I've recently discovered and some of the history. So what you're looking at below is the new Fullerton Road. But if you're a kid of the 60s or 70s, then you are aware of the old Fullerton Road, the old original Fullerton Road, which cuts off just past Rowland Heights, takes you for a tour through the Lahabra Heights, comes back out by the Korean church and continues into harbor. So 60 freeway up here, Fullerton Road. You turn off on the old Fullerton Road and you come up. This is Powder Canyon. So Powder Canyon would have been one of the two natural passings through the mountains for the Gabrielino to get from the mountains to the sea. This would have been one of them. The other one would have been over in Hacienda. A lot of the history has been lost, but there are certain cities, certain areas that are doing a pretty good job of preserving it. Look at this. Native habitat restoration in progress. They're replanting native. There's some buckwheat down there. There's oaks all over the place. I saw some sage, planting yuccas. They're restoring it. So on the other side of Brea Canyon, where Brea Canyon dumps into the city of Brea, when you exit the oil fields, just before you go out, on your left-hand side, the east side, there's a 4-foot white monument. I always wondered what it was as a kid driving past it with my mom and dad. Well, I stopped and I read it, and that is the site, a historical site of a camp and the meeting of some Spanish travelers and the people who live there. There'll be more about that in the video later too. That's where it took place. Now if you were to head this way, down towards San Diego, that general direction, or if you're driving, if you go out Chapman, all the way out Chapman, 16 miles roughly, you will hit Black Star Canyon. That was another big camp. They camped there for a long, long time. Up at the top of the mountain and Black Star Canyon Trail, the top of the hill, almost the high point, there are a few oak trees off the side of the trail. Underneath them, you can find dozens and dozens and dozens of grind holes. They're not small, they're deep. They were worn, they were used for a long time. There's a lot of history in this area, these hills. Also in between the north and the south on this ridge, just east of where those houses stop, lay LA 29 Nike base. In the 50s and 60s, they had a Nike base there with Hercules missiles. If you are interested in that, I have a video on that. I have 2 videos on that. And through that video, I met one of the guys who was actually based there. He's retired and lives back east. He's writing a book on it. So now I'm going to take you to the other side of the mountain and show you the city of Brea, Lahabra, Fullerton. Maybe not show you all of it, but tell you about it, the founding members, and a layout of what it used to look like compared to what it looks like today. So this is the city of Lahabra. Got Anaheim Stadium out that way. You got Signal Hill way off that way. That would be Harbor Boulevard going right down center. Flowing through the valley were 3 main water sources. and a few others that were seasonal. The three main sources all flowed from the northeast to the southwest. One from Brea Canyon was Coyote Creek. Then flowed from the now Hacienda Road area flowed the Lahabra Creek, and many other smaller creeks flowing from the arroyos and the surrounding hills flowed and added to all the others during the rainy season. Today the flood control channels carry all the runoffs, and the old creek beds are barely noticeable. If one knows where to search, remnants of the old creek beds can be found. Some abundant with wildlife such as small fish, crawdads, minnows, and frogs. Some of these may very well be the descendants of the wildlife that was here long before the settlers. The Spanish missionaries, led by Gaspar de Portolo, entered Lahabra from the east in January 1769. They camped at the mouth of the Brea Canyon. They crossed the Puente Hills near the present route called Fullerton Road. He later passed through again in January 18th, 1870, on his return trip to San Diego, entering from the northwest around the hills rather than through. The easier, more direct route, followed by weary travelers, that would later become known as the Camino Real, a trail missionaries would use to travel to the many missions along the coast. Don Gaspar Portola, with 60 men, camped here July 31st, 1769, on this first exploration march north of San Diego to Monterey. Dedicated June 2nd, 1932 by Orange Parlor number 242, Native Daughters of the Golden West. This is one of the first campsites, big campsites known in Orange County. I'm going to show you some more places around here, tell you a little bit more about it. I will give you the dates and the times when the oil wells were put in, how everything changed. But somewhere right along here, in this area, they found signs of the camp. There's a large camp. And in the journals, the Spaniards said this is where they talked to the first people of the area. So all these hills, these were local playgrounds for myself and the kids I grew up with. This is Brea Canyon going by right here. That other side of Brea Canyon, where they have that present oil rig setting up, right there, or taking down, that's where the oil refinery is based. There's trails all over the tops of these. If you look at them, Google Maps, Google Earth, there's trails all over these. You could, theoretically, you could walk these trails. It would take you weeks, maybe months, but you could walk these trails from Montebello and beyond all the way down to Camp Pendleton. They're all connected through either tunnels going under roads for the wildlife, such as one when you're going over Fullerton Road. There's a tunnel there that you don't even realize you're driving over. But when you drive over it, they used to have, I don't know if they still do, if somebody stole it or not, they used to have a game camera, and it had a website number on it where you could go on a website and you could look up and see what animals triggered that camera. I don't think there's an exact year or an exact turning point or one reason why the native people's number decreased to a point where the new settlers overtook them. But I did read that in 1865 smallpox took out many of the native people. As more people came in to cultivate the land, livestock was brought into the valley, sheep and cattle, later ostrich and peacock. The San Gabriel Mission was founded in 1771. It was one of the richest at the time, utilizing the area as they grazed huge herds of cattle. Shortly before Christmas in 1861, rain began, It didn't stop for a month. Coyote Creek became a torrential river, cutting through the valley in an ever-deepening ravine. The lower part of the valley became a lake. The adobe dwellings were washed to sea, uprooting willows and washing over the land. Many herds of livestock were lost. The following years the cattle flourished and grew into huge herds again, so the cattle prices dropped out. The following 2 years brought drought, and it killed off many of the cattle, and those near dead were butchered and the horns and skins were sold. The rest of the cows were left to rot in the sun. For a long time, the land from Hills to San Diego were referred to as the Valley of the Bones due to the amount of rotting cattle and bones along the way. The crops that were present at this time were cabbage, onions, peas, oranges, lemons, corn, strawberries, apricots, plums, walnuts, squash, pumpkins, and avocados. In August 1888, the Santa Fe brought its first railroad passenger into the Fullerton stations. It was the closest to Lahabra until the turn of the century. The railroad was of great importance for shipping goods to San Francisco. In 1822, Union Pacific finished its second line to handle the local freight. The depot building, built in 1923, and is presently the Children's Museum, which I have something personally to add to this history. Growing up in Orange County, when I was young, there were cornfields, orange groves, avocado groves, strawberry fields all over the place. Well, in one area where the tracks divided, one headed south and the other continuing east, there was a plot of land in between where there was orange grove. There were some tracks going off the main tracks in a short distance and into a shed, which was locked up. As we were playing bike tag and cowboys and Indians and everything growing up, all of us kids local, used to stop by and hit that lock with a rock, hoping to pop it open so we could once and for all find out what's in there. It was a really old shed. And one day when I was about 10, 11, maybe 12 years old, my friend Jeff and I were passing by there, and that lock popped open on the first hit. We looked at each other like we just scored something. We didn't know what it was. But we opened it up, and there was one of those old pump cars like you see on cartoons. Well, we looked at each other like, wow. We pushed it out on the tracks. As we were pushing it out, the handles started going up and down. The handle's in constant engagement with the wheels. As long as those wheels are turning, that handle's going to go. There is no coast. It's direct drive. So we put our bikes on the pump cart, and we start pumping. We're going down the tracks at a good speed, and we're laughing as kids do, and we straddled the pole and sat on it like a seesaw, holding the pole and pushing and going up and down. And as we neared Harbor Boulevard, headed west, we heard the ding 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 at the gate. So we jumped off thinking, oh no, oh no, oh no. But no train came. Jeff goes, hey, I think that's us, the wait or something contacting. So the gates are down, cars are stopped. Now mind you, this is in the early 70s, mid 70s. So there were no cell phones or anything. So all these cars are stopped, and we got back on the cart, pulled our bikes and got back on the cart, and we started going again. We're going through the intersection, and everybody's looking at us, and they're getting out of their cars, and they're yelling, get off that, you guys are going to get hit by a train. We just laughed it off and kept going. We rode that cart all the way down past Cypress, down to where the tracks divided. They continued on west, but they also veered off to the right and went over past an old packing plant, which is no longer there. Now it's a park and some kind of housing tract. But the tracks ran right alongside the old packing plant from the oranges, which is now the Children's Museum. Well, Jeff said, hey, the police department's right there. If somebody went to the police department, they're going to be looking for us. So we jumped off the cart, pulled our bikes off, rode away, forgot all about it. Well, that cart sat there for years. And when we went back to the when it became the Children's Museum, it was welded in place and became part of the display. Years later, when I had a daughter and I took her there, I asked people, "Hey, where'd that come from?" They go, "The story on that is unknown. One day they came to work and it was just there." I told the guy the story, but I don't think he believed me. But yeah, I'm responsible. I made a donation to the Children's Museum. At the time, the only ports were down by San Diego and up by San Pedro. So in 1870, Domingo Basancheri, one of the most successful sheep ranchers coming from San Pedro, kept his sheep with a man midway between here and there, with a man named Bixby. Now, if this could be, I don't know if this could be at Bixby Knolls, which is around Carson Street and Atlantic. It's the midway point to the valley. A lot of the places back then were named after the people that ran it, that owned it. So Basancheri then reached the now known area as Fullerton. He had a successful citrus and avocado crops as well. He dug a lake to water his herd, and that lake remains to this day. It's presently called Laguna Lake. It's located just north of Basancheri Road. Many of the roads hold the names of the founding members of the area. Now, Lake Basancheri, or Laguna, has been there for more than 150 years, that means. I've been fishing that lake since, let me see, I was born in 65. I've been fishing that lake since 1970. Haas Avocados got their start here. There's a plaque dedicated to Mrs. Haas, widow of Rudolph Haas, who planted the original seed in 1926, which grew into the popular variety of avocado. The original tree died in 2002, but there's a plaque located at 426 West Road, Lahabra Heights. During the Cold War, Nike missile bases were erected all along the coast. One of them is right up here in Lahabra Heights. Nike base LA-29. It was activated in 1958 and deactivated in June 1971. Gold was discovered in the San Gabriels by Francisco Lopez Mojodarmo of Mission San Gabriel under the Oak of the Golden Dream. In 1842, it became the first commercial placer gold mine in California, 6 years before James Marshall's discovery on the American River at Coloma. A lot of you drive right past this and don't even know it. This is at the corner of Central, which is State College. It's also Lahabra Boulevard. It's also Leffenwell, same street. And Berry Street. Puente Street. LA 29 Nike base is up there. Look at this. Canyon Road. Gandalf. Welding, oils, all the way to the space shuttle. So I guess it starts right here from the Gabrielinos, Tonga, grinding acorns, making baskets, the acorns, making the meal, fish hooks. So when the Spaniards came in, missionaries, some fish, the gold rush, the oil, the welding, power plants, and then the space shuttle.